When it comes to Nigeria, the broader political climate is a concern, even if markets aren't really reacting to that power vacuum that exists at the moment. What's your take on all that's playing out at the moment?
Well, it clearly does have an influence. I mean, we've seen the Niger Delta violence sort of, I wouldn't say erupt, but we've seen friction re-emerge in the Delta. We've seen friction emerge in Jos, so it's probably not directly related to the presidential issue. But clearly, one wants to get this issue resolved. You know, one wants to reduce the uncertainty associated with a president who's been in hospital for 2 months. So the court ruling that came last week that the cabinet must now make a decision on this within the next 2 weeks, I think is welcome in that respect, in that it brings this matter to a head. Subsequently there's been press reports that President Yar'Adua is making a hasty recovery and should be back in the office. Well, I guess we'll have to see how that transpires, but it needs to be resolved.
Of course it needs to be resolved, because there are two key areas that this has implications for, where we're seeing reforms, yes, in the banking sector, but in the oil sector as well, where that petroleum industry bill still needs to be signed and passed. Just how much of a stumbling block do you see this posing for reforms that are currently underway, where we've started to see some kind of support and some kind of positive sentiment surrounding the Niger Delta specifically? It
clearly is a stumbling block. I mean, nobody as a caretaker, you know, president or as a caretaker leader or anything wants to make dramatic decisions or change directions or force something through while the actual leader or person in authority is not present. So it clearly is a stumbling block, you know, and I think Vice President Jonathan is doing a great job of keeping things ticking. You know, we're seeing movement in some areas going, but the reality is that Nigeria strongly needs these reform efforts you mentioned, like the oil industry. Niger Delta is critical. These things are critical to Nigeria's success in the medium to long term. So these things need to be able to progress, and we can't do that until there's finality on what the condition of the president is.
Of course, at the moment, despite the uncertainty and the cloud that looms over this space, I mean, projections have revealed that Nigeria's economy should grow at 6.4% this year, higher than that 6.1% that was projected in government's 2010 budget proposal. Inflation, though, is likely to remain in double digits as well, posing policy concerns for Africa's top energy producer as well. What's your outlook on the inflationary front?
Well, the inflation issue is troublesome. I mean, inflation has battled to come down through a period of relatively speaking low growth. You know, we've had issues with, over the last year or two, with exceptional money supply growth that has come through. We know it breached 100% at one stage last year. It has come down meaningfully, you know, down to the high teens at the current levels. We're still dealing with strong currency depreciation that happened about a year ago. The question is, has all the inflation passed through happened of that or not? You know, so there are underlying concerns, and if we do go into an environment where the economy does manage to pick up, albeit slowly, well, then it's going to pose new challenges to the central bank, and I think, you know, the period of relatively easy monetary policy is what we've had in Nigeria for some time. One probably has to say during the course of this year that will come to an end.
Well, let's bring our market watcher from Lagos into this discussion now. Of course, joining us live from our studios in Lagos is Muyiwa Oni of Stanbic IBTC Bank. Muyiwa, thanks so much for your time this morning. Just looking at the central bank and its recent activities, of course, a lot of the focus has been on reforms within the banking sector. Yesterday we had the markets putting on quite a performance, Zenith Bank in particular rising close to full 5 percentage points. Of course, the board has announced a new CEO designate for Zenith Bank, and the market's clearly liking that news.
Yes, that's true. The market obviously does like that news, because there was a very positive performance from investors on the stock. And for me, I think the major reason why that was done was because of how quick the bank was able to come out with its successor. And that obviously shows that the company obviously has succession planning in its part of its strategy. And for us, I think it's obviously a good thing. I think apart from that, Zenith Bank also does have good prospects, even though we expect that the profit would decline this December, for December 2009 results, because of the huge provisions they had to take after the special audit done by the CBN. But overall, we still believe that the bank does have lots of good prospects. And based on our valuations, it still does appear to have about 22% upside to our target price. And it's also currently trading at about 7 times its earnings and a book value of about 1.1 times its time. So for us, we do believe that it's still a very good investment, and investors will obviously still will still be interested in the bank for now.
In the meantime, Intercontinental Bank seems to be making successive strides as well. What's your view on that counter?
For me, I think that it's not so clear right now, because obviously we know foreign investors are interested in picking up one of the distressed banks, and also local banks as well have shown interest in picking up these banks. But I think because all these banks have negative shareholders funds, Intercontinental as well does have negative shareholders funds. So for me, I think investors right now, I still believe they are speculative, because the reality is that you really don't know what you are getting if you are buying it right now. You can't, the CBN hasn't really come out to say how much the current investors still have in stake in the bank. So for me, I think it's still more speculative than anything. And I think what would really drive or keep this rally going is if the banks that either foreign or local banks that are interested in the banks actually come out and pick up these banks quickly. I think that's when we would actually see more of a sustainability in the price rally.
That's one of the factors that could influence and sway things to a more sustainable direction. Let's turn to other fundamentals that could be supportive here. Earnings reports. We saw First City Monument Bank out with an earnings forecast for the first quarter to the end of March this year. The stock rallied 4.4% on that news. The market certainly liking what's come out there. What have you made of that release?
I've looked at the numbers, and for me right now it's still not clear, because it's actually not in line with what they've done in the past, and we still want to discuss with management on the particular results, because it's not really clear right now.
In the meantime, as I was talking about with Leon a little earlier on the show, the oil sector is seeing some movement as well. We know that Oando launched a rights issue yesterday. Market reaction to that, and your outlook in terms of the way it's going to perform moving forward in the current market context?
For us, we believe that it's actually a very good move for Oando, because part of the offer would actually be used to pay off some of its short-term debt, which they've been paying high interest on. And we believe that would obviously improve the quality of their earnings. So for me, I think it's obviously a good move. And they also intend to invest part of it also in the oil and gas sector, in their exploration business. So for me, I think it's obviously a very good revenue driver, and we still think there will actually be very good things to come for the company.